walk you through that hardship, walk you through and stick with you until you get to that place of healing. That's discipleship. So I want to close with this. I want to invite Eric to come up, and we're going to worship one more time. But before we do that, I want to close with this story. And there's a story I came across. There's this guy by the name of Chuck McCarthy. And Chuck McCarthy, the reason you've probably never heard of him is, because he's never really done much in terms of at least what he set out to do. Chuck McCarthy, he set out to be the next big Hollywood movie star. And so several years ago, he went down there and, got a few side gigs for a few commercials, and, didn't really go the way he thought it was going to go. And, so he goes there, he invests everything he's got to become a professional actor. And so the money, it starts kind of running out, and he's kind of running out of time, when it comes to paying the rent for his apartment. So he's kind of got to come up with a plan B. And so Chuck starts thinking about himself. He's like, what can I do to afford to keep my dream and hopes alive, right? So he comes up with kind of this ingenious business. He decides to be a professional people walker. People walker. In fact, he actually starts up this campaign on Facebook and with flyers, and he offers to walk humans for $7 a mile around the streets and park near his home. That's his job, a people walker. In fact, I love his ad campaign and some of the flyers, what they say. It says, need motivation to walk, scared to walk alone at night, don't like walking alone at all. Don't want people to see you walking alone and just assume you have no friends. Don't like listening to music or podcasts, but can't walk alone in silence, forced to face the thoughts of the unknown future or your own insignificance in the ever-expanding universe. Pretty good little ad campaign, right? Because he knew, he'd been around Hollywood long enough to know that even though so many people, there were fans, there was still this chronic loneliness. And so he's just kind of going out there to meet this need. And what's interesting is as he did this side business, all of a sudden, his phone just started ringing off the hook. I mean, to the point where, he's booked out, he's expanding. People Walker, Incorporated now is starting up. He started a business of this. Other people walkers. And it's interesting, this thing that he thought was just sort of a side item. Something when he had extra time to do, the side thing became the main thing for him. And listen, I share that is, what would it look like if we as a church, if the side thing became the main thing? If when it comes to the needs of those who are hurting around us, and trust me, there's so many people, every single one of us, there's people in your lives who are just like the man in that story, the Good Samaritan on the side of the road. Broken, hurting, robbed of joy, robbed of satisfaction, robbed of purpose, desperate for somebody to show up in their life, to push through the awkward conversation, to meet that greatest need by inviting them either into a relationship with Jesus or inviting them to church, inviting them to something where they can encounter the love and the grace and the mercy of Jesus Christ. See, what would it look like if we as a church, we chose to become people walkers? People who, instead of walking around the problem, walking around the needs, walking around the hurts of our community, chose to walk right into the mess of it. Chose to walk right to people. And not just to them, not just simply share that, but you know what? We're actually going to walk with them and walk them through, no matter what the trial, no matter what the difficulty, what the circumstance, we're going to be there for them. We're going to reflect the commitment and the love that Jesus has for us. We're going to reflect it to them through our commitment, our love, our compassion, our heart for them. So as we get ready to worship, every head bowed, every eye closed, I want to pray for you. And listen, I really believe there's a person, even as we started to talk about this, even as we started to share and talk about inviting people to church, inviting people to know Jesus, there was somebody, I believe, that came to your mind in your heart. Maybe it was that boss. Maybe it was that spouse. Maybe it was that long-lost friend who's so far from God. listen, I think that God, these next several weeks, I believe he's going to give you an opportunity to meet them at their greatest need. I believe he's going to give you that opportunity to invite them to church or to invite them into a relationship with Jesus. The question is, will you have the courage to push through the awkward? Will you have the courage to push through the uncomfortable? Because listen, it matters. We're all on the same road. And if not for the grace of Jesus Christ, if not for the hope we have in Jesus, we're all hopeless. May these be the next several weeks we become people walkers. Not walking around, but walking right to them. Getting right in the mess with them. Helping them encounter the greatest answer and the greatest gift they could ever receive, and that's you, Jesus. Who is that for you? I pray you would just seal them in your heart. In fact, I would even encourage you sometime tonight to write them down. Write their name down in a Bible. Write their name down on a connection card. We'd love to be able to pray with you, but write that name down and commit. Commit that over these next several weeks, that when that opportunity comes, I'm not going to walk around it. I'm going to walk to it. I'm going to invite. And for those of you that maybe for you, you're on the other end. You're that guy in the story. You're broken. You're hurting. You feel robbed of so much joy. You feel robbed of so much significance. Listen, I don't think Jesus brought you here by accident. But I believe he brought you here to remind you that even though maybe you've given up on you, maybe others seemingly have given up on you, Jesus never gives up on you. And again, you doubt that? All you got to do is look at the cross. And right now, he's calling you. He's giving you this opportunity to change the destination of your life by having the courage to simply surrender your life and ask Jesus to come into your life. And if that's you, if you've never asked Jesus in your life, I want to challenge you to make that step. Take that step today by simply praying this prayer with me in your heart. Jesus, I acknowledge I'm a mess. I'm a mess of sin, of shame, of failure. I've messed up more times than I can even remember. But I believe you love me enough to come down on a cross to pay a price I could never pay on my own. And as a result, that destination is changed. Rather than an eternity apart from you, I can rest and walk confidently with an eternity forever in you. That joy that I feel like has been robbed from my life, that purpose that's been robbed from my life. Father, I know by asking you into my life, it's being redeemed even in this very moment. Jesus, I ask you to come into my life and be Lord and Savior. In Jesus' name. Why don't you stand up and let's just worship